and to God be the glory. And so today we have to present, we have Mrs. Josephine Christmas, our very dear sister, who is going to be speaking to a personal experience as a mother in the area of parenting. Then we have Mrs. Glendine Watley Sutton of the Child Protection Services, who will be giving us her insight as well. Then we also have Mrs. Joeline Woodley, who will also be speaking in her capacity as a counselor and indeed as a mother. And of course we have the Reverend Troy Watson, whom we know very well, who is going to be speaking from his experience in the Ministry of Gender Affairs and also from his personal experience as a father. But just before we get into our presentation, I just would like to say a very short prayer that, oh God, we thank you for this opportunity and we bless you for the occasion that we can come together and share an experience such as this. And we pray, oh God, that the words of our mouths and the meditation of all our hearts together will be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. And now, my name is Chesil Hamilton, and I will seek to guide the discussions, and I will start by doing a quick introduction. We have Sister Josephine Christmas. Josephine Christmas, as we know, is a former, and I suppose more than once, Mother of the Year here at Zion, because we are aware of her role as a great mother in our community and a role model even in our very church. And so she's going to be speaking from that vantage point. Could you please welcome Sister Josephine Christmas, please? And then we have Ms. Glendine Watley Sutton. Glendine Watley Sutton is a proud woman, a proud Kittitian, and the proud mother of a 4-year-old son. She has worked as a child protection officer with the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services for the last 3 years. She describes herself as a professional student, as she is entirely captivated by the idea of learning new things and always gaining new knowledge on insights. She regularly advocates for the respect of individual human rights against all forms of prejudice and discriminations. She has indicated that the number one motivating force in her life is her family, and from personal experience can attest to the benefits of having strong, positive family support systems. Ms. Watley received her formal education at the St. Mary's University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, and graduated with a Baccalaureate of Arts degree in Criminology and Political Science with the highest distinction. During her university tenure, she volunteered with the Chibukto Connections Spryfield Pathways to Education program as a tutor to provide educational and mentoring assistance to grade 9 students, mostly at risk of dropping out of high school. In addition, her work with the Halifax Victim Services Department that provides services for abused women and children helped cultivate her personal interest in the welfare of marginalized and vulnerable groups in society. In 2012, she received formal training in restorative justice, RJ, as a facilitator with the Community Justice Society in Halifax. RJ is an alternative theory of justice that emphasizes repairing the harm caused by criminal behavior and focuses on the needs of the victims and the offenders, as well as the involved community. Now, after returning home and taking up the post as Child Protection Officer, Ms. Watley feels she has found her rightful place in the workforce by being an advocate for children's rights, welfare, and safety on a daily basis. By nature of her passionate and dedicated personality, her roles with the department quickly increased, as she is often called upon to participate in forums such as this one, in addition to conducting various workshops which are aimed at educating individuals on the various rights of the child and child abuse. Ms. Watley continues to invest in her professional growth by undertaking training in areas such as child rights, mediation, offending behavior and policy development and reforms. She is a UE, that's University of the West Indies, certified drug abuse prevention specialist and a WICB UNICEF Child Protection in Sports facilitator. Oh, indeed, yes. West Indies team? WICB? Well, that's interesting. Ms. Watley intends to pursue further studies in social policy development and management as she feels it is important to have the necessary systems and regulations in place to ensure that the welfare, safety, and best interests of children are always recognized. Now, that is a very impressive bio, and I am sure that you would want to help me welcome Ms. Watley to this forum. I now speak to Ms. Jolene Manners-Woodley. Mrs. Jolene Manners-Woodley. Now, she is no stranger to us. She is a member here at Zion. And so I'll just tell you briefly that she's a counselor. And she has worked as a counselor for the past 9 years. Her clients include children, teenagers, adults, couples, and families. And at present, her place of work is at a counseling center located at Greenlands in Bastille. In terms of her background, she has a master's in psychology, a bachelor's in mass communication and psychology. And a little personal information about her: she is married with her 6-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. And she has singing and dancing and writing and photography and going to the beach as some of her habits or hobbies. Hobbies, let's call them hobbies. Ladies and gentlemen, really needs no welcome, but let's welcome her anyway. She's one of us, Sister Jolene Manners-Woodley. And finally, I would like to have us welcome the Reverend Troy Watson, and I would give him an opportunity to just say a brief word about himself just before I begin to make the other presentations. Brother Watson, could you just speak to?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Troy Antonio Mark Augustus Fiddler Castro Watson. I am married to the Reverend Desmond Bell Watson. Together we have 2 children, and I love God.
And as I said, he's going to be speaking to us about his experience as a father and also in terms of his experience in the Ministry of Gender Affairs. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want us to listen very carefully and pay attention. We're going to give Sister Christmas an opportunity to speak to us for about 5 to 10 minutes about her experience as a mother in the area of parenting. Sister Christmas.
Good morning, church.
Okay, go ahead.
Morning, church. I would like to begin by explaining what parenting really is. It's the right of a family relationship between parent and child. You know, parents are not just chosen, they are legally chosen. So, by law, your guardian, your legal guardian, is chosen by law, and they, in turn, recommend that you treat the minor child and you have the right to his custody. And who should have the custody? Whether the father or the mother. But you have the right to support that child, to correct and discipline him, not excessively, or that will be child abuse. You have to care for him. If a minor incurs debts, you have to pay for them. But we are admonished in the Bible, in Proverbs 22:6, to train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. at baptism, when we bring our children to be baptized, we promise to bring up those children in the Christian faith by prayer, precept, and example. And in Proverbs 23:13-14, you are told that the rod of correction is necessary. It will not kill him, but it will guard his life from sin. By nature, the three islands of St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla were bound together. So I hail from the island of Anguilla, born in the 30s, into a Christian family, Mr. and Mrs. Francis Hodge, and many other older siblings. We were a family of 12, and that is how we grew up. We were nurtured and cared for by parents and in the Methodist Church. But there were days when we had no electricity, no running water, no modern facilities. Cooking was done by wood and coal. There were no cars, maybe about 3 in the whole island. And during the Second World War, so food was scarce. The ships could not bring any food to the island. But in spite of these hardships, we were trained to the best of the ability of our parents. They sent us to school every day, church and Sunday school. And every time the church was opened, we were there. We were taught the duties of my father, who was the sexton. And not only the sexton, a class leader, a local preacher, Sunday school superintendent. So we had to learn to do the things that he did, like helping to clean the church, ring and toll the bell, prepare the communion, pick flowers for the church when there were no flowers. Some ministers do not want any artificial flowers, so they will tell you, well, put match me into the church, because those artificial flowers were not made of God. And there was always a togetherness at home. We had our older siblings to look out for us, to care for us, to take us to church and Sunday school. The games we played were our own entertainment, because there was no television and computer to distract us. So we played games, ring games, skip games in the yard. Those were our entertainment, and mostly at moonlight nights. Whoever had the biggest yard would get all the children to come and play. But we were privileged children. Money was hard to come by. But thank God my father was a shoemaker, and he did all of the trades. As he used to say, he was the jack of all trades, master of none. My mother, she made her own clothes, and they loved us dearly. She loved to crochet. We were fed well, because what? They were not afraid to till the soil. And when they tilled the soil, they did not use everything at one time. It was dried and bagged and put up for the dry season. and then you will ration it out little by little. We don't forget the mornings, Christmas mornings, All Year's night. Toys, our own toys were made. Mother would make a doll, or teach you how to make a doll. You stuffed it, or you made animals and stuffed them. The boys were taught to make their tops and other gadgets. And that was the activities that went on. Church, Sunday school, Young Adventurers, Girls' League, Junior Guild and Wesley Guild, concerts to raise money for missions. The mission box was always in the house and passed from one child to the other. School, concerts. Oh, school was happy days. We loved to go to school. But after school, what? No jobs. No jobs, very few. So some of us, some went to St. Martin, the nearby island, others to England, others apprenticed to seamstresses and tailors. Some took to sailing, which is or they go fishing. I always remember the reaping of the salt pond, and the jollifications, which I wouldn't stop to read, but that was the way they tilled the soil, with the men from the community, helping community. Each one helped one. And at Christmas time, before you had your breakfast, you had to take the basket to the older folks so that they could enjoy their Christmas. We're not having anything to do. You know, you had matchmakers in those days, and they wanted to. Is that right? They would match you up with somebody, but that was not for me. I wanted to be something. So I applied for nursing. Came to St. Kitts. Came by a sailing boat. But, you know, God always have a guardian angel there to take care of you. So I met quite a few nurses from Anguilla, not from my village, but we soon get to know one another. And then I had a sister who used to live up here. So the Lord always provides someone. In turn, after finishing my training, I got married to Mr. Cardinal Christmas, a well-known Moravian, very active in his church. And we got married. We produced 10 children, 5 boys, 5 girls. And we nurtured those children. We trained them up in the Lord. But to train children, you have to teach them certain things. You have to teach them manners. You have to teach them how to build confidence in themselves. And the first thing you begin with is love. You have to love your children and let them know that you love them. You play with them. You provide for them. And you help them to get along with one another. Parents should enjoy relaxing with their children and have one big family. Teach them the ways of life. And as they grow older, you have to have the faith that they can go out on their own. So you have to believe in them. but let them set their own pace. Do not compare one child with the other. One would be a little brighter than the other. The other one would be slow, but do not impeach that child and tell the child, oh, you're not like your brother or you're not like your sister. You let each one choose their own space and don't compare. Sometimes we don't listen. But sometimes they come in and they want to tell you something. You brush them away. But you should listen. And when you listen, you let them know you are listening. And children should have freedoms. And that is one of them. Freedom to talk. And you should too help them to talk better. Ever since they are small, don't talk baby talk. I never spoke baby talk to my children. And when they have difficulties with their S's and their TH's, you try to correct them at an early age. And you help them to get along together. No fighting, no hitting. The boys were taught that they were not supposed to hit their sisters, and they were not supposed to hit girls at all. So they grew up knowing that they were not supposed to hit one another. And as they grow older, you help them to overcome emotional problems, because sometimes they are fearful, and you have to help them to know that there is a problem and help them to get over it. And another thing to teach your children is how to live through a crisis. I don't know how many people, how many children know how to go through a crisis. Say even the hurricanes. You have a hurricane and they're anxious to see the hurricane, but you don't tell them, you know, the hurricane can blow in the window or throw down the house or something like that. And they just anxious to see what a hurricane is like. And I remember when we had a hurricane and the children saw me getting old sheets and putting them together. Mommy, what are you going to do with those? I said, you'll see. And when the water started coming, I put one under each window. And then they say, oh, we see now. So whenever a hurricane comes, I didn't have to tell them to get these things. They knew that they had to get them, and they would get them and be prepared. So teach children how to live through famine. There was famine when we were growing up, famine due to the war, but we survived. And you have to also teach your children how to live with other children, their friends. Because sometimes children like to fight and tease. And now how are you supposed to live with your children? The children are exciting to live with. They are challenging, but they are rewarding. And you teach them how to understand each other. They must foster a feeling of love, supplying continuity and consistency and predictability to their daily life. You help them to overcome the fears of life by understanding themselves, self-understanding. Explore their interests. You have to detect early any mental disabilities in your children. Yes, you do that. And you teach them wisdom and understanding. Book knowledge is not all. Teach your children common sense. I picked up a magazine and I wondered why I kept this magazine. Maybe something is in it. So I opened it and I found this, and I quote, the comments of Mona and Mark, both Methodist ministers, and they both agree that the home environment was major contribution to the path they have taken. Mona says, we were born into it. The activities of church, Sunday school, and the various youth groups were reinforced at home by the family devotions every morning. She further said they were constantly pointed out as the Christmas children. This was because their parents themselves were actively involved in the church and their children's lives. Mark simply said this as an example of the verse of Scripture, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we really appreciate that. And we would go straight to our second presenter and invite Sister Ms. Glentine Watley to present.
Good morning.
Yes. Yes, Sister Glentine Watley will present now.
Speak.
Good morning. As I sat here, I'm actually pleased and a bit relieved that Mrs. Christmas, a mother with extensive experience, with children, grandchildren, basically raised some of the points that I'm going to raise here. So it can't be that I have it wrong, because Miss Christmas, through experience, realized that these things are important in reference to parenting. At the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services, our vision statement defines our core objectives and provides a standard against which we expect all those involved with children to operate. It emphasizes the importance of providing a caring environment for all children, one where love and warmth flourish, one which provides each child a safe place for sleeping, playing, and learning, one that gives that child a healthy start, a healthy lifestyle, and the opportunity to learn positive values. Also, it provides at least one responsible adult who is unconditionally committed to safeguarding and promoting the best interests of that child. Our vision statement is an act of appeal not to children, but to their parents, their guardians, and their caregivers. It highlights the responsibility of parents. You are expected to look after your children, provide them with the necessities of life, food, shelter, clothing, medical and educational assistance. You are expected to raise, to the best of your ability, healthy, well-rounded individuals. You are expected to teach them positive values, the difference between right and wrong, the importance of respect and manners, the importance of showing compassion, understanding, humility, etc. The department did not end our vision statement just on these few things that parents are expected to do. We found it important to include their involvement in their children's lives. Parents have to be involved, actively involved in their children's lives. As parents, do we know what our children like? Do we know what they don't like? Do we know their favorite pastimes? What they want to become? What their experience in third grade was? Parents have to be committed to the task of raising a child. Too many of our adults who bring children into this world are not willing to commit the time, the effort, the energy, the sacrifices, and the resources that are needed to raise children. Becoming a parent should be a conscious decision. You and your partner should be able to evaluate yourselves. Look at your jobs. Do you have job security? Did you just start a new job still in your probationary period and deciding to have a child, not knowing whether or not you would be asked to stay and come on to full-time staff? Look at your stability. Are you financially stable? Are you, by yourself or with one or two other children, able to meet everyone's needs? Look at your home environment. Are you living in a comfortable home environment? Where do you live? Who do you live with? Are you still living at home with your parents, sharing a room with your other sister, and planning to bring a child into this world? Those aren't conscious decisions. Parenting takes time, and lots of it. When you think of it, by law, you're expected to commit time from the moment your child is born up until their 18th birthday. And I'm sure as Mrs. Christmas sits here, she would be able to attest to the fact that it never ends, even after 18. Your children would still be looking to you to provide them sometimes with assistance, sometimes with emotional help, sometimes, yes, definitely, sometimes with advice. So by law, it's 18, but those of us who are parents and who does have adult children know it never ends. Parenting takes patience. You have to be patient with children. Again, Miss Christmas raised that fact. It takes patience. You would not always understand why your child does something. Take the time to figure out why they did it. Take the time to teach them why they shouldn't do it or they should continue doing it. Parenting takes understanding. It requires a parent to grow with their child. In order to parent and parent well, one has to be willing to grow with their children. Parents get burnt out, frustrated, discouraged when they're not willing to grow with their children. Every year your child spends in this world, they become more informed, gather more insights, become more enlightened, more knowledgeable. Children grow up. It's a fact that none of us would be able to erase. Your toddler is now 8. Your 9-year-old is now a preteen, 12. Your 11-year-old is now 17, a pre-adult. As parents, you are expected to acknowledge these developmental stages and curtail your involvement and parenting skills to reflect the stage your child is at. Too often, the root of most parent-child conflict is the lack of understanding and the inability of the parent to grow along with their child. Too often, parents expect to relate to their 15, 16-year-olds as though they are still 7 and 8. We still have parents who insist on bathing their 14, 15-year-old child. Parents who make every decision from beginning to end for their 15, 16, 17-year-old. Parents whose discipline methods or style has not changed in 15 years. As children get older, for those of us who subscribe to corporal punishment, as children get older, the weight of your hand gets lighter and lighter. And I assure there are parents here who could attest to this. When you used to spank or beat your 5, 6-year-old, they would cry. The 7, 8, they would cry. They get to 14, 15, and they stare at you, and you're there beating, getting frustrated, and it's not like you're getting through because they're not crying. They're just staring right at you. At that point, that should be a teachable moment where you need to incorporate other forms of discipline. What worked when they were 7, 8, 9 wouldn't necessarily work when they're 15, 16, 17. You need to know your children and know what will get to them. Some parents treat their 14, 15-year-olds as though they are 4 and 5, doing everything for that child. Recently, I had a meeting with a parent, and she was dealing with some behavioral issues of her 17-year-old daughter. And she's in the meeting, and she's getting frustrated, and she's expressing how disrespected she feels, how rude that child is to her. And to make matters worse, she's like me, who still washes all her clothes. And that was a shock to me. I said to the mother, I was like, she's 17. And she's like, yeah, I know. I said, I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. She's 17. I started to wash my own clothes when I was 12. Teaching responsibility requires you to give children tasks, household chores, things that they are regularly responsible for doing inside the home. Responsibility builds character. Remember, we're supposed to be raising well-rounded individuals. All of which I have mentioned are not things everyone knows automatically. Parenting is a process which, once you are dedicated to it and willing to learn the skills needed in making you a good parent. 2 skills as a department we find are paramount and in our society are lacking are communication skills and co-parenting skills. Most of our cases involving parental conflict that the department deals with can be tied back to the lack or deficiency in one of those skills. Communication is important in all relationships. In the family, there's a need for parent-to-parent communication. It is important in ensuring the safety and well-being of your child when parents communicate. I remember I had to deal with a matter where a mother was basically telling me she does not have to speak or communicate with the father. There she an 18-month-old child. And she's dead set on not talking to him, not getting any messages from him, sending message to him. And I tried to come down to her level and just gave her basic example. You are joint parents to this child. The child spends time in your household and in his household. This weekend, your child is at his father's home. He's not feeling too well, have a little fever. Before the father brings the child home, may have given the child medication. The father dropped off the child, no discourse between mother and father. Child goes inside, mother goes inside. Mother, after having her child home playing with her son, realized he does feel a bit warm, so decide to give the child a second dose of medication. Second for the child. Her first, yes, you're correct. The thing is, right then and there, that parent, or both of them, not just the mother, both of them risk their child's safety and health by not communicating. Sometimes it's as simple as that. I often say to my parents, you don't have to like each other. You just need to understand that you have a common interest and must communicate to ensure the child's welfare and safety, and your child's best interest is always observed. Secondly, we have parent-to-child communication. We need to establish open communication with our children. They need to know that they can and should tell us everything. When we look at some of the cases of abuse, children are victims of recurring abuse because they don't know how to tell their mother. They don't know how to tell their father. The abuser gets additional time to victimize your child over and over again because you never took the time to establish a mode of communication between you and your child. The last forum in which we were discussing communication, we stressed that you don't expect your 12, 11-year-old to just one day come, sit, and be telling you all about their day. Somebody did them something awful at school, a teacher or another student, they just come automatically and sit and start discussing that with you. That's not going to happen. You need to start early in communicating with your children. As early as the child can talk. As early as the child could understand, how are you? How was your day? What happened today? What did teacher say? What did you do? Who did you play with? These are things that as parents we need to start establishing as an early age. As your child gets older, we should be flexible and secure enough in our roles to have discussion with our children, especially in matters that affect them. In some households, unless you're 18 or over contributing to the maintenance of the home, you do not have a say. You cannot be a part of any discussion. They are told what to do, whether they want to or not, whether they like it or not. We start very early at, say, primary school. We enroll our son in football camp, football every Saturday. We enroll our daughter in dance every Saturday. As the child gets older, that parent, that child may not want to be involved in that activity anymore. But they're told, you do not have a choice. I'm the parent in here, and you're going to do as I say. Some parents go as far as to choose the subjects their 14, 15-year-old should focus on in school, not inquiring from their teenagers what they want to do. Unfortunately, this will either create friction or tension between you and your child, or you will holding your child into an emotionally disabled and dependent individual who would be incapable of venturing out on their own. These children would not even know how to express themselves, form and voice an opinion, to be a productive member of whatever team, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's within a relationship, or whether it's in their own family when they themselves come and decide to go and get children. Finally, co-parenting. The reality is that a great number of our families are single-parent families. Children who have both parents in their lives, it is important for them to work together to raise their child. As a department, we see too many children caught in the middle of their parents' conflict. It takes these parents a while, sometimes it never happens, to realize that the only person their actions are hurting is the child. Parents don't respect each other's involvement or right to the child. Some parents even exit their child's lives when that relationship ends. Children caught in situations such as these, as they get older, they learn to manipulate it. Mommy hates daddy. Daddy wants me to come over Saturday because I'm falling back in school to do some extra lessons. I want to go to a party. That child will know exactly what to say to mommy for mommy to decide, you're not going to go over there. My child ain't coming over there. Without even consulting the father to figure out why is it you wanted to come on Saturdays. Most of the matters that come before the department or that goes before the court, if these parents would acknowledge the need for co-parenting and how important it is to develop a channel of communication, these matters would be solved among these parents. Thus, not only saving time, but resources. And demonstrating to the child that despite everything, despite the breakup, despite the divorce, the separation, despite the lies we love you more, and we are willing to work together in respect to each other to promote your best interests at all times. At the department, we do offer what we call parenting sessions. As I said earlier, a parent needs to acknowledge their shortcomings. Parenting doesn't come with a manual. With years of experience, you get to understand. Your first child was rough, your second child, you kind of know, your third child, definitely. So what we do, we often reach out into the community and some of the clients that we deal with and offer these parents, bring them into sessions to teach them different skills, whether it's in communication, whether it's in parenting, whether it's with providing for their children, being there for their children. We also offer parents, especially those in conflict, the avenue for counseling. We would often refer some of our parents to the counseling center, to Mrs. Woodley and Miss Blake, to more or less get them where they need to be so that they would be able to provide and be there for their children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, audience, thank you, congregation, for your show of appreciation. And to Ms. Glentine Watley Sutton, and she hailed from the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services, and she would have shared much of her experience as well as her professional insight in terms of academia in relation to dealing with particular subject matter. She also mentioned that sometimes they have to refer persons to Mrs. Woodley, and Mrs. Woodley is right here, so she now takes the ball and takes it to the next level with further discussion on this matter of parenting. Let's welcome Ms. Manners Woodley, Mrs. Manners Woodley.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a little different to be on this side of the church this morning. I'm usually nicely seated at the back for most of the service, but I'm happy to be here to discuss this important topic today. As it was said, I am the mother of 2 children, a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I love my children very much, and I love being a parent. However, I would definitely admit that having a child is very hard work. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of my energy, it takes a lot of money, etc., etc. I think most of us don't realize how difficult it is to be a parent until we become parents ourselves, and then we appreciate our own parents all the more. But even though parenthood is demanding, I think that most of us would say that we love our children and we want to see the best for them. And so we're willing to make the investment in time and energy so that our children come out to be good fruits, that is, good, productive adults who are able to give back to their communities. And so it's an investment that most of us willingly make. Unfortunately, as a counselor, I also see the other side of the coin, which is parents who are not fulfilling their responsibilities as parents. Some don't seem to understand what it really takes to be a parent. They think that no matter how hard they abuse the child, how much they bang up the child will still come out okay. Some of them don't seem to care. They're busy with their own lives, they're busy chasing after their own pleasures, and they see the children as an inconvenience. We see that with many fathers who seem to think that it's okay to just pay a little money every week, and that's enough. And we also see that with quite a few mothers. In counseling, I also see many parents who seem to be caught up in their own issues. They might be having problems with the child's father, the child's mother, and they throw their anger, stress, and frustration on the child, which is unfair to the child. So when children go through these issues at home, a lot of them show up in counseling at a later date, dealing with issues such as low self-esteem, depression, anger, fighting in school, aggressive behavior, behavioral problems. Some of them never come to counseling at all, but they go on to get involved in bad relationships or criminal behavior, or they get involved in gangs because they're angry and they're hurt and they're looking for the love and acceptance that they didn't get at home. So the truth is that what we do as parents matters. It matters a lot. And I think if most of us were to look back at our own parents and how they raised us, we would realize that their parenting had some kind of impact on us, whether for the good or for the bad. And so, as parents, we have the first contact with our children, and how we raise them helps to shape the kind of person that they would come out to be. If we parent well, it will set a good environment for those children to be good fruits. And if we don't parent well, if we mistreat them, abuse them, it gives them a very shaky foundation to start out life, and it might see those children struggling throughout all of their lives. So we have to actively create the environment to help our children be good fruits. How do we do that? As a counselor and as a mother, I would like to suggest 5 things that can help. Number 1, build a relationship with your child. Show your children that they are important to you by building a relationship with them. Sometimes we're so busy taking care of the children's physical needs. We know that they had breakfast to eat. We know that they have clothes to wear to go to school. We know that there's a roof over their heads. They have money to buy lunch. But we don't sit down and actually talk with them. If you had to ask some parents a simple question about their children, for example, who is your best friend? What is your favorite color? What do you think about politics in St. Kitts? A lot of us would not be able to answer because we don't actually take the time to talk with our children. A lot of times we're too busy talking at them, or we're too busy dealing with other things instead of building a relationship with our children. And that can make our children feel very unimportant, like they don't matter. So one of the best ways to nurture a child's sense of self-worth and to make them feel loved is to spend some quality time with them. It doesn't have to take any money. It could be something as free and as simple as taking a walk together, going to the beach, baking a dish together, watching cartoons, playing. All of those are simple things that we can do to build a relationship with our children. Also, make some time to have light-hearted conversations. All of the communication cannot be about scolding and telling the child what they're supposed to do and what they didn't do. We have to make time to actually have some fun conversations. What do you like? What's happening in school today? What do you think about this? What's happening with your friends? How are you feeling today? And when our children talk, we must listen. Because when we listen to them, it helps to build their confidence, and it also helps to build that line of communication, as Ms. Watley said earlier, so that in case of any problems in the future, the child feels comfortable coming to us and telling us what might be going on with them. Of course, let your children know that you love them as well, and show it in your words as well as your actions, such as a hug, a kiss, or a simple "I love you." Number 2, discipline. I think most of us would agree that this is important. Children need guidance and rules so that they know what behavior is acceptable and what is not. And so it's important to set rules and discipline accordingly when needed. And discipline is not just about licks, as we like to call it. Licks has its place within limits, but using other methods, such as just talking to your child about what they did and why it was wrong, is also another method of discipline. Taking away privileges or letting your children deal with the natural consequences of their actions is also a method of discipline that sometimes we don't use. We like to make everything about licks. And as Ms. Watley said, it's something that loses its effectiveness as the children get older. It's important to consider the age and the stage that children are at and to be patient with them. Childhood is naturally a time of learning and making mistakes. We should never let our frustration get the better of us so that we verbally abuse, humiliate, or physically abuse our children. Our discipline instead should be about positive correction, not about humiliating the child, embarrassing the child, and so on. We should always maintain a respect for the child as we set out to discipline them. Number 3, set a good example and surround your children with positive examples. Live how you want your children to live. Children don't look at what you say, they actually also look at what you do. And so if your actions and your words don't match up, children will learn not to take you seriously. Surround your child with positive role models. For example, maybe a father figure if the father is absent, a godmother, an auntie. And get your children involved in positive activities such as church groups, sports, dance, girls' brigade, police boys club. Show interest in their education as well and all of their positive pursuits. And make some time to highlight the positive things that your children are doing and let them know that you're proud of them. Number 4, allow your child to be a child. Set boundaries between your own issues and your child. Sometimes as parents, we're going through certain problems. Maybe we're feeling tired, we're feeling stressed out. Maybe we're having issues with the child's father or mother. And we take those issues out on the child, which is unfair. Our issues are not necessarily our child's issues. Our issues are not necessarily our child's issues. For example, if I am stressed at work, I don't need to swear after my child because my child comes to me and asks me a question. I need to find ways of dealing with my stress, whether it is calling up a friend and talking to them, taking a walk, but that is my issue to deal with. It is not my child's fault, it's not my child's responsibility. If I'm having issues with the child's parents, I need to sort it out with the child's father or mother and not let the child get caught in the middle of it. So as parents, I think we need to set a boundary between our adult issues and not let that affect how we treat our children. And the same thing goes for adult conversations, adult material that the child doesn't need to be exposed to. We need to allow our children to be children. And the last one, discuss life's dangers. There are a lot of things out there that can affect children in a negative way. There is peer pressure, pressure to have sex before they're ready, criminal involvement, gang involvement, drug use, sexual molestation. There is pornography. And I would like to make a special mention of that one because these days, with technology and the internet being so popular, there are a lot of young children and teenagers who are accessing pornography online, and the parents are not aware because they're not technologically savvy in the first place, and so they don't bother to check to see what their children are doing. And so, because they're not aware, they're not able to have those conversations with their children. And pornography is something that can affect children in a very negative way. For example, it can lead them to want to experiment with sex at an earlier age. We have also heard of cases of young children assaulting other children because they viewed pornography and they want to try it out on somebody who might not be able to fight back. So that is one danger. Sexual predators on the internet is another danger. There are a lot of older men out there who are friending young girls on Facebook and other social media and sexually assaulting them. We have actually had cases of that at the counseling center. And so this is a new age, and I think parents need to get up to the time with some of the dangers that are out there and talk to their children about what's happening and how they can prepare and deal with those dangers. Parents should also share their positive expectations and values for their children. For example, if you don't want your child getting pregnant as a teenager or joining a gang, let your child know that and let them know why, because it gives them a guidepost to live by. If your child makes a mistake, still help them up, dust them off, and help them to move on in a meaningful way, because you will always be their parent. These are some of the parenting practices that I think will help our children to bear good fruits. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Jolene Manders-Woodley. And without further ado, I will go to the next presenter, who is the only male presenter on the panel, to bring you perhaps a different perspective, but also supported by quite a bit of experience and training as well. So let's welcome Reverend Troy Watson.
Good morning to everyone. I would like to first and foremost thank you for having me here, and in particular, I would like to say thanks in particular to Matron for having me here. I am blessed by what I've heard so far, and I look forward to the discussion aspect of the discussion. Now, here is it. I've been a parent for 14 years and a few days. I've had this privilege of being married to a daughter of Zion. Okay. Can you hear me now? Can't hear me now? Can't help. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I have this one. Just to rewind a bit, I'm saying that I have been a parent for 14 years, and my wife and I have this wonderful privilege of parenting 2 children. It has been a challenge. It is a challenge, but at the end of the day, I think it is the best form of ministry that we have been involved in. And I've been pastoring or dealing with ministry in the church since 1992. For me, I just want to speak primarily about the experience as a parent, as a father, sharing this ministry with my wife and these 2 children. And I want to leave with you an alliteration of P's this morning. I have 6 things that I want to reference, and I ask you to share them with me as we go forward. And the first one is presence. I just like you to turn to the person closest to you and tell them the word presence. As parents, we need to have a presence. I believe that the first thing that we need to do, and as a man, is to understand that as a parent, my role is to be present. That's my first job, to be present. Could you stick it here for me, please? I can't hold. Okay. We're better now? Okay. Thank you. I start with presence because I was present in a relationship with Deslin. I was present when we agreed to extend the family to the begetting of children. I was present at the conception. I was present during pregnancy. I was present at delivery. And a wonderful privilege it was to be present at the delivery to separate mother from child. I had that privilege of cutting, and I was present. But even more so, the present and the presence I am talking about is being present after the birth of the child. Because a lot of our men seem to think that getting someone pregnant makes them a father. We need to be present as men, and not just be present in the house, but to have an active presence in the house. Too many of our parents are just there, not necessarily doing anything, and they are not necessarily participating. So move from presence, which was my first point, to the second point. Participation. Active participation. I believe that I am the best father in the world because I know how to participate. I am not a singer. I am not good at particular chores. I am not the best at certain things, but I participate in all of them. Whether I like it or not, I do the ironing. In fact, there was a time when I was the sole person in my household doing the ironing because my wife, your daughter, don't like ironing. There are other things in the house that I do more of than she does. Cooking. 90% of the time, I am cooking. It gives her the privilege of sleeping late, so she will get out of bed at 7 when I'm up at 5 cooking. Participate. I help to sort the laundry, wash the clothes, hang them out, and if rain fall, dry them, fold them, put them away. I am saying as a father, it is my role to not just be present in the household, but to participate in all activities within the household. I remember one time I was hanging out my wife's underwears. And the neighbor looked over and saw me hanging out the underwear. And they, as a family, joined in the chorus, "The Strength of a Woman." And I shake my head and said, "Poor fools." That's all I had to say, poor fools. Because I am doing what I am called to be and do as a man and as a parent. I am leading by example. I am not sitting down watching television, instructing my children to do things that I should be doing in terms of participation. Why do I participate? Number 3, I participate because I want to show them a pattern. As a parent, my role is to give my children a pattern, an example to follow. You live in the house, you contribute to the house, you participate in the house, and you learn things by patterning the things that you see. True? Now, there are some people who want to give us instructions and say, do this, do that. No, I have learned that over time, the best model for teaching children is to do it so that they can see it. And then ask them to assist you in doing it. And on the third level, watch them do it. So, provide a presence, participate, and to provide a pattern. And this pattern goes a long way because we need to teach our children the spirit of not just modeling what we do, but modeling cooperation and decency. The pattern that we have is one that is founded on principles. Because my job as a parent, alongside my wife, the other half of parenthood, is to ensure that we provide for our children. Not just provide in terms of a pattern, but to provide the basic things in life. And by the basic things, I do not mean food, clothing, and shelter. Oftentimes we talk about the basic needs. That's what I hear people jumping up to talk about. I am not talking about those. Those will come. Because you can provide food, clothing, and shelter for children, and they will grow up to become brutes. What I want is for my children to understand that we are raising them to become decent citizens of the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis and of the world at large. So by provision, I am saying, instead of focusing on food, clothing, and shelter, what about the other basic needs like love and socialization? Teaching the children compassion, empathy, learning to cooperate and to socialize with others, Some parents seem to enjoy children mimicking their backward behavior. I am not for that. My wife is not for that. We need to teach our children to show love, compassion, and empathy. So that's a basic need. They need that. We need to say that we love them. We need to show that we love them. Love is a part of discipline. Moving on. Another basic need. Education and the access to information. I have said, and I will continue to say, that educated people make better decisions. And by educated, I'm not talking about those who go around sounding very verbose and articulate and show off about the English language or whatever language they speak. There is a time and a place for that, and I'm not saying that we should not be proper. But I am talking about giving children information so that they know. Now, some of us leave education up to the teachers and to the government because the government is supposed to provide everything, it seems. I don't believe in that. The first school is in my house. The teachers are there and I respect them, and I am thankful for the teachers who are here. I see the former principal of my children. I know Sister Christmas has a daughter who is teaching my son right now, and in a few months, hopefully she will be teaching my daughter as well. But by education, I'm saying we need to ensure that children get proper information. It is not about the CXC. That's what I know. I think they have CSEC, CAPE, and CC, that. And other things that they're talking about. It is not about raising a child to go around and to say, my name is Troy Watson, B-A-M-A-I-D-I-O-T, S-T-U-P-I-D, F-O-O-L. You see, people like to boast about the letters behind their names. But what I'm talking about is giving children an opportunity to interact with the world, to understand basic things so that they can make better decisions in life. So we have education and access to information. We need to also give them freedom. It was alluded to in terms of freedom of expression as well, because I have found that a lot of our children do not know how to express their feelings. You ask them how they're doing, I'm okay, all right, and they do not know how to properly express themselves, because it seems as parents we shut them down mighty early. So in provision, I'm saying we need to provide for them freedom and freedom of expression. We need to give them work as well. And to understand that work is a part of freedom, because the value of work is right there. We work not because of punishment, but for exercise, for routine, for pattern, for money, and other things. We work for various reasons. It's not about the money. So we need to also provide for them security and a system that is structured to provide order and the administration of justice. By that I mean children need to develop routines. There's a time for bed. There's a time for play. There's a time for school work. There's a time to even farm the fool. But there's also a time to be serious and to get things done. So when we talk about security, I'm saying we need to protect our children in such ways that we understand and we teach them that we're here to protect you from the evils of the world and even from the evil of ourselves. Because there are some parents who do some really ungodly things to our children. They're in the living room watching television, or worse, in their bedroom watching television. And the child is outside, and we're going to call the child, John Lewin, come here. Yes, mommy, yes, daddy. Could you hand me the remote? It is just wrong. It is so wrong on so many levels, it's not funny. We need to provide many other things for children. We need to provide health and sanitation. And by health and sanitation, we're also talking about not just, well, we're not talking solely about the healthy environment, but wholesomeness and value. To understand that there is more to life than blinding ourselves on these devices that are way smarter than we are, going around taking stupid pictures, having idle conversation, and being less sociable than you can imagine. Because I've found a lot of people on social media and they're not sociable. In fact, I hardly go on Facebook. I try to hide. Sometimes on WhatsApp, I just disappear for days. Because it makes no sense to have some of these conversations. We need to teach people the value of sitting down and having a discussion about life and about things in life that are meaningful. So let me wrap up with the other things now. So I've done presence, I've done participation, we did pattern, we did protection. We need now to give perspectives. What do I mean by perspectives? In as much as I'm asking my children to follow a particular pattern, and we have a motto within our family, the Watson family believes in principles above personalities. In as much as we are individuals and we have our rights and responsibilities, and we should form and formulate our own personalities, we need to put things into proper perspectives. We are individuals living in a community of other individuals. And it is not about me or myself or I and what I think. While those are valuable, the community is more important. And the principles of the community take precedence over the personalities in that community. My children have the right to call family meeting. They have the right to express themselves just as much as they have the right to be punished for wrongdoing. You have the family perspective, but I also teach them other perspectives. Christianity is there. We are a part of the Christian church, but I also talk to them about other religions and how they feel and think about issues. And we need to do that. Ensure that children understand that while they have a perspective, there are other perspectives. Last but not least, children need to we need to give our children propensity. We need to propel them. We need to push them. We need to encourage them. And by encouraging them, I don't mean choose for them. My son is in third form. Just the other day, like the years before, he came to me with a sheet of paper saying, these are the subjects I will be doing when I enter fourth form in September. What is my role as a parent? My role is to listen to his justifications for choosing the subjects and to encourage him, to provide for him in such ways that I give him the push. He should not be worrying about books and uniform and things of the sort. For that reason, I don't go to particular stage shows and I don't go out. I save my money so that I can give them the push. I don't wear a weave, or I don't encourage my wife to wear one. I give them the push. Instead of directing the money into the fancy clothes, I give my children the push and the encouragement to go forward. It is no longer about Troy Watson. Troy Watson was born in the late 60s. I am an old man. I don't have time to be dressing up in the latest fashion. In as much as I do not put my children in the latest fashion, I encourage them to make wise choices, and schoolwork is valuable. Get your education. He decided he's doing these subjects. He said the reasons why. I agree to them. I sign the paper, and I say, go off and do your best. But also, in terms of propelling them forward, I am looking for that wonderful day when I give them that wonderful push, because I want them out of the house. Now, the law says I am supposed to take care of them up until 18. I have given them 3 extra years. When you reach 21, you should be out of my house. And I am preparing them for that day. So what do? I give them chores. Why? Because you need to work for a living. Nothing in life is free. And don't be fooled by the Christian church. Salvation is not free. Somebody paid a price for it. Nothing is free. So when you get your allowance, please look on the checklist because you need to contribute towards the mortgage. Yes, they help to pay the mortgage. They eat the most food in the house, so they must contribute towards the grocery bill. They use the most electricity, so they must contribute to that. They get a ride to school and church in the vehicle, so you must contribute to that. So in as much as you earn an allowance, a part of that allowance must go back to the family because you are wasting the most water, the most electricity, the most time, you eat the most food, and you're the biggest slackers in the house. So I am preparing you for that day when I say, get out of my wife's house. My daughter said to me, but Daddy, you're supposed to get out first. You're the oldest. No, I'm going to wrap up now. But what I'm trying to get across to us is that we have this duty to prepare our children for the world ahead. And I really believe that if we don't set these patterns and principles in place, we will fall short of that God-given right and responsibility to care for the young. So, in as much as we want to rejoice about food, clothing, and shelter, I believe that some of the things I raise are more valuable to our children in terms of getting ahead and going out there and making the Federation a better place, because that is what we really want. God bless you and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Reverend Troy Watson. It's just been a very enlightening discussion so far. I want to tell you in the audience that we are going to give you an opportunity to ask at least 4 questions, so you can prepare your questions even now. But I wanted to just reflect a little bit on the discussion so far, because we have heard from Sister Christmas. Among other things, she spoke about how you should be comfortable around your children. One of the things that jumped out at me when she spoke was that you should have your eyes open enough to be able to detect any special needs that they may have from time to time. And I'm just scrolling now, and I would have heard from Glentine Watley about the self-empowerment that parents ought to give themselves so that they have a heads up, they understand what's happening. I would have heard from Ms. Manners Woodley about things like hard work, about the good fruits, and then I would have heard from Reverend Watson about certain sacrifices and the tough love that one needs to have when one is a parent. I just kind of summarize 1 or 2 of the points because I want to now give persons an opportunity in the audience to ask any questions by show of hands. What I want you to comment on while we are waiting for the hands is there was a comment about allowing the child to be the child. And what I want you to comment on, and this would be to any one of you, is when some parents are seeking to be close enough to their children, I get a sense that sometimes they tend to try to behave like the children as well. Does anyone want to comment on that? Yes, go right ahead.
Well, I think I was the one who made, I was the one who made that comment. When it comes to parents wanting to be like their children or wanting to be their child's friend, sometimes we see a lot of that. Some parents think that that's the best way to parent. I need to be my child's buddy, I need to dress like them, I need to go out with them, I need to talk like them. I don't agree with that. I think it's important to have a relationship with your child that is warm, that is where the child feels that they can approach you as a parent. You want to have a good, loving, caring relationship where the child can talk to you about anything, but you still want to have a boundary between yourself as an adult and the child. As a parent, you are the one in authority, and so like the parent and you act like the one in authority. You are the one who sets the rules, you are the one who is in charge of the household, and that authority is yours as a parent, and I think that parents should maintain that, but at the same time still have a balance, still have to have that warm, caring relationship with their children, but that doesn't necessarily mean being your child's friend or acting like them or being a child yourself.
I see Sister Watley nodding her head because she also had said that you have to grow with your children, and I wanted to have her make that distinction as well. So you want to just make a brief comment on that?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Sure. I would agree with Mrs. Woodley in that there's a time and place for everything. You want to be your child's best friend to the point where if someone were to abuse your child would be willing to come to you with that information. You would want to be their friend where if they do tell you, they would like to know that you are going to believe them, whatever they may be reporting, in reference to abuse, of course. Jewelyn talked a bit about the authority that you would have to put down. A lot of parents, between the ages of, say, 0 to 12, they're just playing with their children. They come to the teenage years, the tough years, when the child starts developing into their own selves, and you realize things they may do, you may not agree with it. And this is the point where, when the children are 14 and 15, that parent wants to put the foot down. And for a child that haven't even seen your authority, you exert that authoritative figure in their childhood coming up, they wouldn't even acknowledge that foot being put down. I mean, as my bio indicated, I have a 4-year-old son. And every time I ask him to do something or stops him from doing something he wants to do, he would say, "Mommy, you're not my friend." And I would be like, that's fine, I'm not supposed to be your friend, I'm supposed to be your parent. So I guess that's the stage that he's at, being around other children, where if they don't all agree, they're not my friend, we're not talking to Susie, she's not our friend. So he uses that in the home a lot. And I try to instill in him as early as 4, I'm not doing it to be your friend. I'm not asking you to do something to be your friend. I am your parent. So that's definitely a distinction that needs to be set and set very early.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanted to kind of piggyback on something that Reverend Watson also mentioned when he said, we work not for punishment. Now, here's what I want you to comment on, because I know that sometimes persons like to use work as a punishment. In other words, if you've been a naughty boy, then you are given a chore to do. Does that send the right message or what?
I don't believe that it sends any message that is positive. If chores are seen as punishment by children, they will dislike it. And I believe that in the same way we say to people, you should love your work and enjoy your work, because then you'll have a grand time earning a living and making a life. We need to point to children the value of work and the benefits of doing work in the household. This week you're on dishes, next week you're on feeding the dog, cleaning up the yard.
Like the parent and you act like the one in authority. You are the one who sets the rules, you are the one who is in charge of the household, and that authority is yours as a parent. And I think that parents should maintain that, but at the same time still have a balance. Still have to have that warm, caring relationship with their children, but that doesn't necessarily mean being your child's friend or acting like them or being a child yourself.
I see Sister Watley nodding her head because she also had said that you have to grow with your children, and I wanted to have her make that distinction as well. So you want to just make a brief comment on that?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Sure. I would agree with Mrs. Woodley in that there's a time and place for everything. You want to be your child's best friend to the point where if someone were to abuse your child would be willing to come to you with that information. You would want to be their friend where if they do tell you, they would like to know that you are going to believe them, whatever they may be reporting, in reference to abuse, of course. Joelyn talked a bit about the authority that you would have to put down. A lot of parents, between the ages of, say, 0 to 12, they're just playing with their children. They come to the teenage years, the tough years, when the child starts developing into their own selves, and you realize things they may do, you may not agree with it. And this is the point where, when the children are 14 and 15, that parent wants to put the foot down. And for a child that haven't even seen your authority, you exert that authoritative figure in their childhood coming up, they wouldn't even acknowledge that foot being put down. I mean, as my bio indicated, I have a 4-year-old son. And every time I ask him to do something or stops him from doing something he wants to do, he would say, "Mommy, you're not my friend." And I would be like, "That's fine, I'm not supposed to be your friend, I'm supposed to be your parent." So I guess that's the stage that he's at, being around other children, where if they don't all agree, they're not my friend, we're not talking to Susie, she's not our friend. So he uses that in the home a lot. And I try to instill in him as early as 4, I'm not doing it to be your friend. I'm not asking you to do something to be your friend. I am your parent. So that's definitely a distinction that needs to be set and set very early.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanted to kind of piggyback on something that
Reverend Watson also mentioned when he said, we work not for punishment. Now, here's what I want you to comment on, because I know that sometimes persons like to use work as a punishment. In other words, if you've been a naughty boy, then you are given a chore to do. Does that send the right message or what?
I don't believe that it sends any message that is positive. If chores are seen as punishment by children, they will dislike it. And I believe that in the same way we say to people, you should love your work and enjoy your work, because then you'll have a grand time earning a living and making a life. We need to point to children the value of work and the benefits of doing work in the household. This week you're on dishes, next week you're on feeding the dog, cleaning up the yard. This week you're responsible for ensuring these things are done, next week you're doing that. Every day you're responsible for cleaning your room. So they don't have jobs, but as an incentive they get more playtime and they get an allowance at the end of the week.
Okay.
So I am using work to point to them that we're made to work. In fact, I say to people, the very first commandment that you find in the Bible is when God spoke to the original children and said to them, be fruitful.
And
multiply.
Yeah.
Replenish the earth. Some people see the fruitfulness in terms of getting children, but there is the fruit of the hand, the fruit of the lips, the fruit of the mind, the fruit of the spirit. There are so many things that we are called to be and to do. That is work. It is not punishment. That is work. So we are created to work.
As a duty to our family, community,
Yep.
and to the world, we have to work. So work is not necessarily supposed to be looked at as a punishment.
Just as much as I say to people, paying social security should not be seen as punishment.
All right.
You're supposed to contribute for the benefit of those who are here. But when I get old, who is going to pay? That is not the concern. We live in a community and we're doing something now to help the community now.
We are running out of time very fast. I'm not seeing any hands, but I wanted to get Sister Christmas to just give a brief comment on something that she spoke about when she mentioned that the person with the biggest yard in the community provided the the forum for the family and other children to come together. What was the value of all of that? Having the person who has the biggest yard accommodating all of the children, what was the value of that?
The plan? Well, when it is moonlight, we all get together and play games. So some children didn't have a big yard. So you use whoever had the biggest yard, the children would come and we play games, you know.
So all the children in the village?
In the village, yeah, in the community. Of course. You were all a closely knit family. You know, most of them are your cousins, your aunties, your uncles. So we all were together. And we looked out for one another. If you had and I didn't have, we gave one another. So that is how we survived. Okay?
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have an issue with time as we speak. I still was looking for at least one hand to see if anyone had a question that they wanted to ask before we close. At least one question, if you would like to, or else we take it on the hour. Yes. And we, of course, are quite pleased that we have been joined throughout this morning session by the folks in Radio Land from ZIZ Radio Online and ZIZ Radio on Air. And so we really, really want to thank them. And they will be leaving us in a short while. But I still am looking for one question from the audience. Anyone? If not, I would encourage you to continue to think about the different things that were discussed this morning. I want to get a final comment from Reverend Watson. Just a closing comment. I won't be able to entertain closing comments from everyone because of time, but let's get a closing comment from Reverend Watson on this issue of parenting.
Okay. I believe that I'd want to close with this thought. Sister Christmas made reference to that, to the fact that as parents, we should not use baby talk with our children. And I found it very instructive. It is something that I've always advocated for, in the sense that we talk as adults and as human beings around our children. I don't believe in the Google, Gaga, whatever that means when we're talking to children, in as much as I don't believe that we need to dumb down in having a conversation with our children regardless of their age or stage, because the objective is to teach them and to train them to pattern what we are doing. And it makes very little sense to me for grown folks to be chatting gibberish to children trying to appear to be cute. Also, I would like to encourage us to be deliberate about protecting our children from not just the wiles of the devil, but the evils in the hearts of men and women around us. There's a sense in which as parents we like to get some downtime and free time. I have never had downtime, and I don't have free time, and I don't believe in it. My job as a parent is to be there for my children. I'm not saying to smother them or to lock them down or to imprison them, but I am using it to say, do not pass off your responsibility as parents. And sometimes the senior folks in our community facilitate the wrongdoing of some of our younger parents who went out, made adult decisions, got children, but they want free time to go to party. And then you see the older folks coming to church with the children, their grandchildren, and what are the parents doing? Sleeping late because they were out idling or doing some nonsense. Now, why am I saying that? I am saying that because in as much as we're trying to help, we are not really helping the parents to be parents. We are helping them to be fugitives from their responsibilities. And they have this wonderful job that they need to get done, and if we do not allow them to do it, then we are creating a bunch of selfish parents who are teaching their children that it is okay for someone else to raise you as children and pass on responsibility and blame. And this is where we are in the Federation right now, where our men are running from the children, our women are running from the children, our television, cell phones, iPods, tablets, and other senseless devices are raising our children. Our children are becoming people who are more convulsive and violent, who are more inward and fatherless because they do not want to be anything like mommy or daddy, and they're just victims of themselves and their peers. Because we are not present, we are not participating, we are not protecting them. We're not giving them a true perspective of life. And they are not really being prepared for the world ahead. Let us take up the responsibility to train our children, not just to provide food, clothing, and shelter. Train them to become responsible, mature adults, law-abiding citizens of the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis. God bless you, and I thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you very much to Reverend Watson. Thank you so very much to Sister Christmas. Thank you so very much to Sister Glentine Watley Sutton. And thank you very much to Sister Geraldine Manners Woodley. Ladies and gentlemen, let's show appreciation one more time for the panelists. And while I invite Sister Rhoda Prokop to come to the stage to make a couple of remarks on the presentation, I